get started.
This is work hours and work ethic. This is a quote given by Richard Nixon, the 37th President of the United States. In 1971, he stood before the nation addressing various aspects of labor, such as work ethic and productivity, in his Labor Day address. Throughout his speech, he recognized that meaningless work does not exist. Working is good, and an occasional sacrifice needs to be made for the good of the economy as a whole. When pertaining to work ethic and productivity, these things cannot be studied in isolation. A famous tale in Greek mythology tells of a character named Sisyphus who characterizes a notion of a continuous work ethic. This tale, written by Camus, a well-known psychologist, goes somewhat like this. Sisyphus is condemned with the punishment for cheating the gods and spends the remainder of his days rolling a large rock up a hill, and when it falls back down, he repeats his actions by rolling it back up over and over for the rest of his time. It appears on surface level that Sisyphus never experiences a decline in his work ethic, despite the repetitiveness of his actions. Now, in relation to human beings, this is unrealistic to expect people to work constantly without experiencing a decline in work ethic. Humans have so many other expectations placed on them in their day-to-day lives, such as grocery shopping, family, houses, or whatever it may be, that cause them to exert a sufficient amount of time and energy that can wear them out. Understandably, humans, on top of work and all their other expectations, have so many things that tire them out that it's unrealistic to expect them to have a continuous work ethic, like it appeared that Sisyphus did. But through an interview with National Public Radio, psychologist Van Dantum explains a deeper meaning through this myth. He explains that it encourages people to make deliberate and conscious decisions in their work so they can receive their intended outcome. Van Dantum explains that Camus may even go so far as to say that even when choices are forced upon you, live your life with your eyes wide open, because the meaning does not lie in the work in itself, but it lies in what you bring to the work. While Nixon states that meaningless work does not exist previously, Camus would most likely qualify this by saying that meaningless work does not exist as long as you put your heart, soul, and mind into the work to get your outcome. This leads to the question, how do work hours hinder work ethic? What you see here is a graph of sleep deprivation and its effects on the body. When people work long hours, this commonly has a great effect on their sleep. Many companies use long working hours to validate their productivity. This can be in companies who stay up all night to prepare for an upcoming sales pitch or presentation to make sure that they have everything they need for the upcoming day. They stay awake through various tactics such as office races or late night coffee runs, scooter races, whatever they can do to keep themselves awake and their minds going to prepare themselves. Now, this may seem that it has tremendous benefit to the company as a whole. It actually has reverse effects for the individual. According to ABC News, the United States is a sleep-deprived nation. When the body suffers from a lack of sleep, it fails to regulate the sugars in the body correctly, therefore leading to an extreme risk of diabetes and a variety of other illnesses. Not only does this lack of sleep affect the individual, but it affects others around them as well. Poisoning and Barone reveal that after 8 hours of work, a reduction in performance occurs, the ability to concentrate reduces, and the risk of motor and cognitive errors increases. Now, evidently, this can be very dangerous in any working field, but especially in working fields that have to do with patients where they could be saving their lives or their lives are on the line, such as doctors and nurses, because this could cost people their lives. But this effect does not stay within the work field. This carries outside to families as well. Additionally, this lack of sleep affects their family, as Britt, an assistant professor of psychology, along with police and sex, explained that extensive hours produce higher divorce rates and a greater tendency for their kids to develop depression or anxiety. Also, when you say that people may harm people in their working field, this is unintentional, obviously, because once you hit that 8-hour mark, as mentioned in the quote previously, you start to not realize what you're doing, and that, as mentioned even previously, when you start to hit that 8-hour mark, you don't think as much, and that decreases the meaning of your work, as Camus would have said earlier. So, furthermore, these long working hours affect the family and the people within the work field, which has tremendous detrimental effects, I guess you could say. This leads to the solution. As a solution, Working hours should be regulated to not exceed 8 hours whenever possible. This can have benefits for not only the workers, but people outside as well, and it also can help unemployment. Instead of having 2 workers who each work a 12-hour shift, you could have 3 workers who each work an 8-hour shift. Nonetheless, there's an opposition to these working hours. Evidently, work holds a high importance in today's world. This glory of work in itself is not a reason for bad working conditions, ethic, or productivity. It's actually the attitude that surrounds his work that creates what some know as a sink or swim environment. Through an evaluation of elite Army units, researchers found that workers who valued their work more were less able to come back from a work-related setback than those who did not value their work quite as much. Now this connects to an idea of a strong commitment to work that Nixon emphasizes for the nation to strive for. In workers, resilience is a strong characteristic that the ability to recover quickly from setbacks is important. This creates a distinction between resilient workers and non-resilient workers. Nixon and Camus make evident the importance of engagement in one's work previously mentioned, while on the other hand, not engaging in one's work enables them to handle struggles in the face of opposition. The diversion of these aspects calls for remediation. In society today, people need to recognize themselves as humans, not just as workers. Whether or not one has a family to care for, the life should always have more value than a job. Evidently, working a job is necessary to save one life and one family. Yes, some may argue that this shortening of hours is negative to their income or whatever they need to help themselves, but this can relate back to Nixon's idea of an occasional sacrifice for the good of the whole. And in this case, the sacrifice would be the safety and the health of all people, especially people working in their family and in their field. Ultimately, jobs should help to stabilize lives, not shorten them. That's my substance.
Thank you. Can you shut that off? What was it? What did it say?
What's your password?
8.
I have 40 seconds left.
Perfect. Well, we should have used. I'm just kidding.
Actually,
Can you talk about your actual research process? How did you select the strategies you used to gather information or conduct your research, and were they effective?
okay, so originally I wanted to look into like work ethic as a whole, but then I realized when I was researching that work ethic is affected by a lot of other things, and so I would have to touch lightly on each other aspect, and I decided I wanted to go into sleep more thoroughly instead of just lightly touching on all those aspects that I found at first.
Thank you.
What advice would you give to other researchers who would do something similar to this as a topic?
I would say, well, obviously, to focus on one aspect that you think is most important, and also to maybe look at other examples of where this regulation of working hours has been put in place, or I guess there are regulations of working hours, but maybe one that has shorter and their reasons for it. I was gonna do that, but I didn't have enough